the house build was very similar to what we were intending to do. So, and it was pretty much 5 minutes before they were closing. I think I've done that many times. And met Craig and Adam, and they were great, and then just had a chat to them and walked through the house and looked at all the features and really looked at the quality, and I think that was really impressive. And the guys were great to chat to, and I think that's where it started. Obviously, you know, there's a lot more communication, but just seeing their work and the finish, and that open house concept is a great idea. So, you know, we could open cupboards, get through the house, look at it properly, rather than feeling like you're in someone else's house. So it's great. I thought it was very important because even meeting a builder and seeing someone's house, it was really important to go in and physically see the craftsmanship and the quality rather than the styling of the house. And I think that was really such a good idea. You can open cupboards and not feel like you're intruding in someone's house. So that was great. And talking to the builders, because all the tradies were there, and you could talk to them, and they would explain to you a certain aspect of the house that you're interested in. So that was really good. And to meet the builders, and that's another aspect. The builders were the same builders that obviously eventually came to our place. So that was really good to know. It was a core group of people.
Now, I didn't get to go to any of the open for inspections, but I did go to our own, which was fabulous. And having all the builders and everyone here and people able to walk through and comment on our property was fantastic. But we did inspect some properties that Builders of Architecture had built as part of our evaluation process in selecting a builder. And again, it was just seeing the quality of workmanship, seeing the style of build that they were doing, what was very important. But loved having our own open for inspection. It was a fantastic night. Great to have people through. Love the concept. After purchasing the property, we made a decision that we wanted to renovate, and it was going to take a little bit of time to get our ideas crystallised. We came across the original architecture plans and the original architect for the building that was done in 1998. So we met with them, a little bit of history where we talked through the owner of that architecture organisation was still around, he was still doing the major design. So we spoke with him, he remembered the property, we did a walkthrough, had discussed some ideas of what we'd like to do. So then we went into a formal engagement with the architect to design the property. In that process, we also engaged an interior architect who was responsible for a lot of the design of the interior, the layout of the cupboards, the design of those, and some of the features that you see throughout the property. From there, we went through an evaluation process through tender for the builder, of which we hadn't made any decisions on. We had no bias towards any given builder. We took recommendations from the architect for his preferred builder, and then we introduced two builders, of one of those being Builders of Architecture that Lorraine had met through the open for inspection process. That process was fairly short. A written submission, we made an assessment based on a number of factors, one of the major ones was inspecting properties that had been built. Whilst we had some budgetary consideration in mind, it wasn't the major driver. It was about the quality of the work and the fact that this was going to be our family home and our family home for a long time to come. So for us, it was really important to have the relationship with the builder that we got along well with, that we could communicate well with, and the quality of work that was to the standard of what we were hoping to achieve.
I think the choices was more about the design, and they had a very good eye for the quality of work. That I was very big on that when we were making the decision. We saw a lot of other houses from other builders, and that was, even though it was of similar, it wasn't the design that we liked. And I could see that they had a vision, and when they were building, they were very... Having Adam as a cabinetry maker... Originally. He had a really good eye for everything, and he was very particular, and I loved that. That was probably one of the biggest draw cards, because he would walk around and he would be commenting and getting things done properly, rather than here's all the work done, here's all the build, and hands off. That's why I liked the way he engaged with us and was continually with us throughout the whole journey. And it was a really amazing journey. Seeing the open houses was probably the thing that won me over, and the people there. That was the guys, and meeting the builders. That's great, because you only often meet the actual person, the front person. We were seeing not only Adam and his involvement, but all the tradies that were there. So I really liked that.
When we had the design of our property done, we knew there was going to be a lot of bespoke development of joinery and cabinetry throughout the house. So another key consideration for us was that they had in-house joinery, and Dave is the man. He's awesome. You can see when you go through the property, you'll see some of the work that he's done was just exceptional. And that was really critical for us, because it meant that they could control their process, the time, the costs. They would have things built at the right time. They weren't doing it after the fact, so if there was issues with measurements, or they were able to resolve that very easily. So what you see in our property is exact fitting cabinetry.
And every millimetre makes a difference in this place. It's not a big place. It's exposed, so you see absolutely everything. And having it bespoke and in-house meant that they could measure and get it perfect, rather than coming in, taking it out, getting it redone. So that was lovely. And they've got it, as I keep saying about it, but their design ideas, we would constantly be looking at it going, can we change this? Once it's in situ, we sort of look at it and go, do we need to change something? It's not looking right. And I'd be sitting there with about 4 of the guys, including Adam, just looking at the design saying, is there something we could just change slightly while we were in the place? And that was great. You're not sitting there going, it's on paper, it's putting it in and leaving it. We were always thinking about just making it better every single time.
So every build does have its challenges. I think we were reasonably fortunate, and we were very fortunate in having Adam and the team because of the way they handled the challenges. Number one was, I think once you start to peel back the old property, you find things that you maybe didn't know. We had steel beams that ran through where we were going to have a set of stairs. So that meant re-engineering, and it meant changes to some design, but it was not a problem. So we got through that. We had some really challenging weather to deal with throughout halfway through the build. So we had a lot of rain, high winds. The property required full scaffolding to go to the second floor. So there was challenges around that. Challenges working with the neighbours, working with the community, and not being a great disturbance. So they were really, really good in that process. And nothing was too much of a problem. So, one of the things that Builders of Arkansas did very well with us was we had a fortnightly site meeting. We had written communications. So we always knew exactly where we were. Anything that was a challenge was raised, there was resolution plans, and it was agreed to, and we got on with it. So there was probably nothing that was major that caused us a hiccup, but we had some things that probably delayed us, maybe a month or two from what we were originally hoping. But in the end of the day, that we weren't going to compromise on the product to fit a time period.
They were constantly keeping us up to date with the things that were going on, and even as making decisions on the way. I'll give you an example. One of the doors, the sliding door, was opening one way, and that was on the design, so that was fine. And Adam rang me up and said, just come down and have a look. I just want you to come on site and have a look if this still suits. Now, most builders would just build it because that's what was written and agreed on. And I'd come in during the day, and they'd go, and we'd look at it, and he said, do you think it should go the other way? It's a simple thing, the door opening one way or the other. Huge difference. Functionally huge difference to us. So it was really good that before they even ordered it, they looked at it and said, let me just ask the question, get you in, and move forward. Now, what would have happened is that they would have put it in, and then I would have gone, oh my goodness, this doesn't functionally work. But they had the foresight to know that, that doesn't work very well. And that was great. Even the bench, remember the bench height?
Yeah.
One of the bench heights on the drawings had it wrong. Now, I didn't obviously check every single measurement. And one of the guys rings up and says, it seems very low. And I've gone, what do you mean it seems low? And he said, I'm looking at this and it's the breakfast bar that we call the breakfast bar. And he says, I don't know if this is meant to be. So I had a look, came in, it was wrong on the plans. But the fact that they called me and just said, I don't know if you want this, however, can you come in and just have a quick look? It solved, I mean, that was great because it was completely wrong on the plans. But we had no, you know, you can't obviously check every measurement, but practically they always thought about it and they always questioned it, and that was great. That's what I wanted. That's exactly what we got. Always communicating, always checking if it doesn't seem perfect and right for them, then they just call me, and that was great. And they made a decision to call me, and despite the fact the plan's perfect, as in it was written as that height, but they called us and said, just come in. It will take 5 minutes. Just want you to check. So that was a constant with them. They were great in that way. And it wasn't just Adam either. It could have been, Mick was the foreman.
And then Tom.
And Tom,
Emery,
it was
the boys.
all of them who would call me. So it wasn't just one person relying on it. If someone was working on something in particular, they'd come out and say, let's have a look at this. Even the design of that part, you know, same thing. We all sat around and redesigned things on the spot as we were looking at it and as things changed. It was great.
Now, we're not saying that's the most ideal way to go because, you know, I think that, there's certain times when Adam would say, look, we need to make decisions and have them pretty solid because you want to build to a plan but I think when it came down to some little things and some subtle changes around some of the aesthetics and some the way the building was finished, that there was some flexibility in saying, right, it's not hard and fast, that that's what the plan says, let's just go and do that. There was some saying, hey, maybe have you thought about this? That perhaps didn't translate from the drawing, that when you looked at it in person and went, yeah, I think that should be something that we should look at, they would raise it, which was great. And that's, again, it comes down to the craftsmanship and the quality and the eye for detail that builders of architecture had in looking at our property, and I'm sure they're doing this with all of their properties, that they were considered what they thought we would like.
What would I do differently? I think I would be more involved right from the start. I think there's that aspect. I sort of left all the designs to certain areas. This is my home. I'm customizing it for what I want, and I feel like from the beginning I should have taken a little bit more. I got involved a lot more. That's me though.
Yep.
That a lot of people would like to be hands off, but for me, when you're building something, I think you've got this option to build your perfect place. So you might as well put the time into that. What would you do differently?
Oh, mine's pretty simple. I would have engaged builders of architecture earlier. I mean, the end of the day, knowing now what we know, knowing the quality of individuals we dealt with in the process, we probably could have short-circuited a lot of the pre-work we did in getting this property ready to be built. We've got a lasting relationship with builders of architecture now that, if we renovated another property or built another property, they'd be the first guys that we'd go to because of, one, the way they treated us and what they built for us as our family home. From the property-wise, it was probably the first major renovation we've done. We've done other minor renovations and some kitchens and bathrooms, but to do what we did here was, one, an eye-opener of all the process that's required, and that necessitated engagements of architects and so on, and to get through town planning. A lot of that was, reasonably foreign to us. But once we got into the build process, there's a lot of things that I think that I wouldn't change because we love the way the process went. And it was a journey for us that was exciting, and we could see it come to life, month to month, week to week, month to month. We'd see, and our kids would come in and get to see it. So it was fantastic. So probably the one thing I'd do is I would engage these guys a lot earlier in the process because they know what they're doing.
And the thing is, they've built a lot of places, so they actually have a good eye for a lot of things and great ideas. It's just that concept of knowing what you can and can't do. And what's easy and hard, and what's expensive and not expensive. They're the things that I think would have been really of value if you're trying to build. So I agree, the engagement would have been a lot earlier, but you don't know what you don't know.
Because of the nature of being a very open plan living, lots of consideration having to go into the cabinetry design, into how the roofing plan worked, all of those things that, you know, from an architecture perspective, there is, you know, we need a roof, we need a set of stairs, so there's a lot of things that, you know, I suppose that we will probably underestimated our costs somewhat. That I think that if an earlier engagement, for example, the stairs become quite a complex build because of the engineering required to create the seamless sort of look in the stairs and the floating stairs that we built. You know, we probably doubled the price of what we were originally expecting. Now, an earlier engagement with, you know, consultation with the builder like Builders of Architecture that would know, it would have been a bit easier. So I think there's some specific aspects that are probably going to be relevant to anyone's build. In ours, we've got a very tight confines of space that we're trying to maximise. What are some of the capabilities the builder might bring in bringing out the best in that space? And some of those things were stair design, roofing design, those things that if we had have got engaged early, we might have short-circuited the process by some weeks to months, I think.
We had to go back to re-engineering for the stairs.
Correct.
And the guys basically did a prototype of the stairs when they first came in. So it was quite a drama, but they got over it and through it, and it was really seamless, wasn't it?
Yeah. It took extra time. It took quite a bit of extra time for them to have that done that wasn't visible to them on the plans. Now, again, earlier engagement, they're things that could have been solved in, you know, probably in an initial consultation, you know, prior to submissions of architecture drawings and all that sort of stuff. So I said, knowing that thing now, having faith and trust in a builder, and Adam was quite forthright throughout the process about the way he communicated with us, even in that early engagement when we hadn't selected Builders of Architecture as our builder, that, you know, this is a journey, these are the things you're going to need to do and you're going to need to know, and, you know, we're taking it on face value that, you know, at the end of the day, it's a sales pitch, but, you know, it was a good sales pitch, and it, you know, and the results are exceptional. So, you know, what we know now, you know, you go back and maybe do things a bit differently because of that trust and faith you have in what you were delivered.
The other part I thought was really good was when we sat down and looked at the quote, they wanted to meet us, not just send us the quote. They felt it was very important to meet us and walk through and explain to us why. And I thought that was a really good thing. I mean, we were a bit like, just give us the quote and we'll have a look at it. But it was very important to explain the quote, what it entails. I thought that was great.
Look, in our process, and we had 3 builders engaged in the tender process. They were the only one to basically demand that, hey, we're going to walk you through this quotation because we want to explain it to you. They weren't the dearest, they weren't the cheapest. And they were very transparent, and that's the one thing I'd say through the entire process we've been through. There was a really high level of transparency, and that came from just, you know, system processes that the builders would use around communicating, documentation, providing you with minuted meeting notes, everything like that. You could sit there and go, oh, okay. And we have one example where we had something to be built in our daughter's bedroom as a deck. And we went back to meeting minutes from 8 weeks earlier and said, oh, yep, we got that, it's sorted. So it proved invaluable for us. Very professional.
You expect the builders not to be as professional in terms of information and sharing. That's my impression. But they were amazing. I was really quite impressed of how well their documentation was, how they delivered it, everything. It was impressive.
That was also part of, I remember the original meeting we had with Adam and Craig. They very much talked about the way their vision for building in the industry and how they can have an impact on that for positive and change the perception of builders for the way they go about it. And in their own small part of what they do, they've done that for us because our perception of the building industry changed significantly going through the process that we went through because of the way that Builders of Architecture engaged us and how they delivered for us.
End to end, right from the start. to the end and after, and that's very unusual. That they still engage us, they still call us up.
Yeah, we're 2 years down the track.
2 years down. It's fantastic. You know, we see them. Obviously, I go to a lot of their openings, so I love seeing the quality of work.
Still
they
turning
do.
up 5 minutes before closing time too.
Yeah, still doing that. But you know, I love seeing their work, and I love seeing some of their ideas and the houses they've built, which means something. You know, they haven't just built the house and left. They've pretty much kept us engaged, kept us involved in what they do. They're very proud of their work, and they should be, because I'm going all the time to wherever they have an opening. So it's great. I love it. As I said, they do really interesting houses as well. It's not your standard houses. They do some beautiful things. And I think that's the beauty of the work they do. They're very accommodating in a lot of ways. I had a very particular thing about the kitchen bench, and I said I wanted a particular look, and I made them go to a showroom to have a look at what I was thinking, and Adam was like, no, it's okay, Lauren, we understand. Obviously, it's been drawn. And I said, I'd really like it. So they actually went to the showroom for me to have a look at what I was, because you know, there's a drawing, but then there's this look that I particularly wanted, and they did. Yeah. They went and had a look and came back and said, you know, we understand exactly what you want. So I think I think that part of accommodating, there's certain things that I was really strong about, and they would help me out. It was great. As a family, I feel even when you do builds, there's all these people coming in and out of your house, right? Obviously in the build, but there was a core group of people that were always there. And that was, I think, really important to have the same people building the house, and then when you do need to get them out, it's the same people, same faces all the time. It's really important to have that. And then when you have to have something fixed, it's the same people coming in. It's not another stranger coming into your house. And I think that part is really important. You're dealing with the same faces.
I think the quality of your product is a testament to the amount of any rework that needs to be done. And when our defects were, you could probably count them on one hand, and majority of them were painting related, that were so minor. So the craftsmanship and the quality of the build was exceptional. The second thing that I think I'd say is that in some part there was something quite unique built for each one of us in the family. So we've got 2 children, a daughter and a son, and everyone got something in particular. Like our son got a custom-made bed that was just, that's for him, and then the builder that did that work out in the factory, was here at the open for inspection, and they two had a great little chat about, I built this for you, and my son was wrapped. My daughter got her own little room and desk and everywhere that was again built by one of the builders. Lorraine got her kitchen and got the builders to go and see the things, and I could just say that I got everything I needed. I got an open fire, I've got
your projector.
My projector, I've got all the things. So in some way that there was some unique little part of the house that each of the builders had done for us that had a really significant meaning for us. Overall, Craig and Adam had managed an exceptional team, a great process, thoroughly enjoyed the journey we went on, and we are nearly 2 years down the track since we've moved back in, and it's like yesterday, and it's a beautiful home.
And it feels like we're on holidays, and I keep saying that to Adam, that you're in the house and it feels like you've got everything that you want.
Yeah.
And it's hard to leave. We've got a beach house. It's hard to leave. It's so beautiful, and everything functions extremely well. And I think that's the beauty of it. It's not just aesthetics. It's everything functions perfectly, and I love that aspect. Yep. The island bench was a little bit too close to the oven.
They moved,
but they'd already built it.
Yeah.
But they didn't tell us, and then they thought it was too close, so they moved it, and then told us later. And it was only because they looked at it and said, this is not working.
Yeah, but then they went and did the same thing. They went, we then think the lights should move, and this should move, and this needs to be the symmetry. And rather than just going, the plan says there, I'll do that. It was like, actually, if I was living here, what would I want? And that was almost the feeling you got, that if this was my house, what would I want?
Yes.
And that made things very different.